So think about this for a second. What if the greatest philosophical treatises ever written weren't, these dense, dusty textbooks, but were actually bloody 16th-century plays performed on a wooden stage?
Yeah, that completely forces a total shift in how we approach philosophy.
Mhm.
And you stop seeing these texts as just untouchable museum pieces,
Right.
right? And you start seeing them as, well, practical investigations into human behavior.
Exactly. And that is exactly what we are getting into with today's deep dive into Boris Kriger's book, Shakespeare's Tragic Mirror. We are looking at why this book really just defies standard academic critique and how it actually functions as a practical toolkit for modern life.
Right, because Krieger argues that Shakespeare anticipated thinkers like Sartre and Freud, centuries before they were even born, but not as abstract theory. He calls it philosophy in work boots.
Philosophy and work boots, I like that.
Yeah, and to understand how he does that, you have to really look at the mechanism. Like, long before existentialism was even a thing, characters like Hamlet were already wrestling with the paralyzing terror of absolute free will.
Oh, like that core Sartre idea. The whole existence precedes essence thing.
Exactly, that we are condemned to make our own meaning. And, well, before Freud mapped the subconscious, Shakespeare was already showing us characters driven by repressed desires that they couldn't even articulate to themselves.
Which is such a completely different angle from standard literary obsession?
Mhm.
Like, Krieger just ignores 16th-century stagecraft or the textual variants of the first folio.
He really does. He skips the technical stuff.
Right, because formal philosophy tells you what to think logically, but Shakespeare shows you what it feels like to fail to think when it matters most. It kind of makes me think of studying formal philosophy as looking at the blueprints of a house.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, like you see the clean lines, the load-bearing walls, the theory of the structure. But Shakespeare's plays, that is like watching the house actually burn down with people inside. And they are making these split-second moral choices about who to save as the roof caves in.
Spot on. And because they are in that burning house, the philosophical arguments aren't these neat, clean syllogisms. They are embedded in the chaotic actions of the characters and, well, the catastrophic consequences of those choices.
And that destructive human element seems to be exactly why Krieger refuses to analyze this from a safe distance. Like, to understand the burning house, he actually steps right into it himself.
He does. He actually uses his own background as a former priest to intimately analyze Friar Lawrence in Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, he points out how the friar's disastrous good intentions doomed the lovers, mostly because he trusted his own cleverness rather than, seeking genuine guidance.
Wait, but I have to push back on that a little. Doesn't injecting your own personal history into an academic analysis kind of compromise the objectivity?
You would think so, but for Krieger, subjective engagement is the entire point. He argues that Shakespeare's work actually demands we stop being mere spectators. By stepping into the story himself, Krieger forces you to face your own flaws.
Because you can't look into a mirror objectively.
Exactly, you have to see yourself in it. The plays act as a direct challenge to the reader's own moral blind spots.
Which turns those historical texts into borrowed wisdom for navigating the modern world. I mean, he brings up the King Lear syndrome, right? That dynamic of aging parents demanding proof of love from their children.
Yeah, and it's driven by the fear of mortality and just this sudden loss of authority.
Right.
When aging parents stare down irrelevance, they often seek validation through control. And that sparks a generational conflict that is literally playing out in suburban living rooms right now, just as it did for Lear.
It's wild to think about, and that same psychological through line is there when he looks at broader society, too. Like, when you talk about the volatile, logic-free mob in Coriolanus, I honestly can't help but picture an algorithm-driven social media feed.
Oh, totally.
But how does a 400-year-old depiction of a Roman crowd map so flawlessly onto modern social media? The mechanics of the outrage just seem identical.
Well, it is because the technology changes, but human nature does not. A crowd responds to emotional stimuli like fear, anger, outrage, with the speed of a chemical reaction.
So the algorithms today act as, like, digital tribunes.
Exactly. Just as Roman tribunes gained political power by whipping the plebeians into a frenzy, modern algorithms survive and maximize engagement by monetizing our outrage.
Wow.
The psychology of the mob is identical whether they're standing in a physical forum or just scrolling through a digital feed.
So really, Krieger's book turns these plays into an unflattering mirror, reflecting the messy complexities of human nature right back at you. It strips away all those comforting illusions, showing us that our passions are simultaneously our defining strengths and our fatal weaknesses.
Yeah, we are basically forced to look at the exact things we try so hard to hide from ourselves.
Which leaves us with a rather dark implication to think about. If Shakespeare's mirror proves that our intelligence almost never saves us from our own destructive passions, is gaining all this philosophical self-knowledge actually a cure? Or does it just give you a conscious front row seat to watch your own house burn down?